The Vikings were seafaring Norse people from the Scandinavian regions, modern-day Denmark, Norway, and Sweden, who lived from the late 8th century to the early 11th century. They are best known for their raids, exploration, and settlement across Europe, Asia, and the North Atlantic. Viking history is rich, complex, and spans several centuries of significant social, cultural, and political development. Here's an overview of Viking history. 1. Origins and early Viking Age. c. 793 to 850. Norse society. The Vikings came from a society built around farming, trade, and a strong warrior tradition. Norsemen lived in villages, and their culture was influenced by Norse mythology, where gods like Odin, Thor, and Freya played important roles. First raid Lindisfarne, 793. The Viking Age is often considered to have begun with the raid on Lindisfarne, a monastery on the northeast coast of England, in 793. The raid shocked Europe, marking the start of a series of Viking incursions. Vikings were skilled sailors and warriors, often raiding coastal settlements. Raiding and plundering. Vikings launched raids along the coasts of Europe, reaching as far as the Mediterranean, North Africa, and even the Americas. They targeted monasteries, towns, and villages for treasure, slaves, and land. They also engaged in hit-and-run tactics that were difficult for local forces to counter. 2. The expansion of the Vikings, 850 to 1000. Settlement and exploration. While raiding was a significant part of Viking activity, they also began to settle in the lands they attacked. They established kingdoms in England, Ireland, and Normandy in modern-day France. In the North Atlantic, Vikings founded settlements in places like Iceland, Greenland, and the Faroe Islands. The Viking discovery of North America. Around 1000 AD, Leif Erikson, a Viking explorer from Iceland, reached what is now Newfoundland in Canada, creating a settlement known as Vinland. This is one of the first known European explorations of North America, centuries before Christopher Columbus. The Great Heathen Army. In the 860s, a massive Viking army, often referred to as the Great Heathen Army, invaded England. This large force captured several kingdoms and eventually established the Danelaw, a region of England where Danish laws and customs were dominant. 3. The Viking Age's peak, 900 to 1050. Viking kingdoms. Vikings began to form their own kingdoms, with notable leaders such as Ragnar Lothbrok, a legendary Norse hero and king, and Nut the Great, who became king of England, Denmark, Norway, and parts of Sweden. His rule marked the height of Viking political power. Conversion to Christianity. As Vikings came into contact with Christian kingdoms in Europe, many Viking leaders and settlers converted to Christianity. This shift had profound effects on Viking culture, including the end of many of their traditional religious practices. Some Viking kings, such as Harald Bluetooth of Denmark, played a significant role in introducing Christianity to Scandinavia. The Viking longships. The Vikings were famous for their ships, especially the longship. These vessels were fast, flexible, and could navigate both open seas and shallow rivers, which made them perfect for raiding, trading, and exploration. 4. Decline of the Viking Age, 1050 to 1100. The end of the Viking raids. By the mid-11th century, Viking raids began to decline. Several factors contributed to this, including stronger resistance from European kingdoms, the consolidation of power in Scandinavia, and the Christianization of Viking societies. Norman Conquest. One of the most significant events marking the end of the Viking Age was the Norman Conquest of England in 1066, led by William the Conqueror, who was himself of Viking descent. The Normans were originally Viking settlers in northern France. End of Viking kingdoms. By the early 12th century, most Viking kingdoms had been absorbed into the larger Christian kingdoms of Europe, signaling the end of the Viking Age. 5. Viking legacy. Cultural influence. Despite their decline, the Vikings left a lasting legacy. They influenced European culture, language, and politics. Viking descendants in places like Normandy, France, and England would go on to play significant roles in European history. Language and place names. The Vikings' impact on language is still visible today. Many places in the UK, Ireland, and even parts of France have names that derive from Old Norse. Additionally, many English words have Norse roots, such as sky, window, and thrust, art and technology. The Vikings were skilled artisans and builders, known for their intricate wood carvings, jewelry, and weapons. Their shipbuilding technology also had a lasting influence on naval architecture. Conclusion: the Vikings were not only warriors and raiders, but also traders, settlers, and explorers who shaped the medieval world. Their influence spread across much of Europe, and their legacy continues to be felt today, both in the cultural history of Northern Europe and in popular representations of Viking society in media and culture. The Viking Age ended around the 11th century, but their stories continue to captivate us to this day.
Subscribe for more video.